Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for its 28th year of NFL action. Just click the link below in my description box and sign up today. BetUS.com, where the game begins. Long enough to cover the subject and short enough to keep it interesting. Welcome to Outta My League. I'm Nick Diaz. I don't like many things in life. The Kardashians, slow internet, screaming babies, mosquitoes, slow walkers at the mall, being sick, stupid people, terrorists, and when LSU wears their all-white uniforms with their white helmets. We got that out of the way. Now, many people will tell you that a sign of good coaching is a team that gets better as the season goes along, and that a sign of bad coaching is a team that is regressing as the season goes along. LSU did not take a step back against Tennessee. LSU did not regress against Tennessee. LSU just got exposed. They got exposed for the same crap and the same things that they've been doing all season long. It just so happened that this time you were doing it against a top 10 Tennessee team with one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. And it looked way worse because of that final score. So, you think things have changed. No, nothing's changed. Same problems, different outcome, different team. But make no mistake about it, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying that the coaches don't deserve any blame, because coaches always deserve some of the blame, always. And we will spend the majority of this episode and next questioning their decisions. But I will tell you, LSU did not lose this game because of Jaden Daniels. LSU did not lose this game because of Mike Denbrock's play calling. And if LSU would have done better job at coaching, which they always could have, they still would have lost to Tennessee, probably by multiple scores. Still. You know why? Because I'm going to say something that's very politically incorrect that you're not allowed to say, but I don't care anymore. LSU's just not talented enough. LSU is not as talented as Tennessee. It's hard for you to accept that because Tennessee has been a trash program for the last 15 years, but that's not the case anymore. They are more talented than you. What about the wide receivers for LSU? Oh, you mean the ones that are dropping passes every single freaking possession? You mean those wide receivers? Well, John Emery was the number 2 running back coming out of high school. Bro, this ain't high school. This is the SEC, and he's in year 4. 5 stars don't turn out all the time. Deal with it. Well, what about all the recruiting classes? Brother, they're gone. They are not here anymore. One's at Alabama, one's at Georgia, one's at Arkansas. They've all spread out. They have left. They either hurt, drafted, or left for another school. They're not here anymore. Tennessee's wide receivers are faster than your defensive backs. Tennessee had more depth than you do. Tennessee has better offensive linemen and defensive linemen than you do. Tennessee has a Heisman caliber quarterback. Tennessee has better running backs than you do. Y'all, LSU, in case you missed the last 2 seasons, went 11-12. They went sub 500 the last 2 seasons. LSU had 38 scholarship players in a bowl game in January. LSU, currently, by my count, only has 65 healthy scholarship players on their roster. The limit is 85. They have almost an entire starting roster less than that. And that number will continue to get smaller as the season goes along. You have a freshman left tackle and you have a true freshman right tackle. You have a center who is too small to play in the SEC, but you have no other options that are better at this point. And you went into the Sun Belt to grab a starting cornerback. You went to McNeese State to grab another starting cornerback. Your best starting cornerback, Jarrett Bernard-Converse, has moved to safety because of injuries. And your best reserve linebacker was a backup at Virginia last season. On top of that, your best healthy starting running back right now is a former walk-on. This is the team. Hold on, Nick, you said this team is talented enough to go 9-3. Yes, they are. They should have beaten Florida State. They can beat Arkansas. They can beat A&M, and they are good enough to beat Florida this week. If they maxed out on their talent, they could have gone 9-3 at best. You lose to Bama, Tennessee, and probably Ole Miss. Now, They probably will go 8-4 at best. But I heard all these people saying, what about 10-2, 11-1? Oh, LSU ain't losing no fucking Tennessee team. They've been trash. Really? Where have y'all been the last 2 seasons? Where have y'all been? If you thought Brian Kelly was going to roll in here with all that crap in year one, compete with the top-end SEC teams, which Tennessee now is, well, guess what? Saturday was a dose of reality for you. Well, Nick, you can't criticize the players. I'm not criticizing the players because guess what? It's not the players' fault. The players were born that way. They were born not big enough. They were born not fast enough or strong enough. It's just the reality of the situation. It's not their fault. It's just what you have. And the talent that you do have are freshmen. And you can't make your talented freshmen more experienced overnight. That will take time, which some of you just don't really want to have with this coaching staff. This is not a typical LSU team. This is the year 2000 all over again, and quite honestly, it's probably worse because you don't have a full roster of talent. And I'll tell you something else. Brian Kelly has been trying to tell you that all season long, that we have to coach better. We have to be more creative as coaches. Well, we have to, do a better job with teaching them this, or we have to coach better at that position, or be more creative in that position. That's code word for those players aren't good enough. Can the coaches do better? Yes. I demand that they do better, and we will get into that. But at the same time, there is only so much coaching can do. Now, we've gotten that reality out of the way. Let's talk about the coaching and what they could have done better. So let's start with the head man himself, Brian Kelly. Going forward on 4th down. 3 of them. One of them I liked. One of them I didn't like. And the last one I just flat out hated. So the first one, inside the 30, Kayshon Boutte reaches out and misses it. You missed by a few inches. I actually had 0 issue with that decision whatsoever. 0 issue. It was 4th and 4. I thought it was a good decision. You're down 10-0. It was the right play call. The problem was, and this is where we'll get to, your freshman right tackle just ran into Kayshon Boutte. The play was a good call. It was a good call. The play was there to be made. It just got disrupted because your freshman made a freshman mistake and ran into Kayshon. Would have had it. Would have walked past the first down line if the play would have gone well. It was the right call by Denbrock, just poor execution. Shit happens. Now, I didn't like the 4th and 1 call where they threw it downfield and then run it and got stuffed. I didn't hate it, but I really just didn't like it. But that goes back to players versus coaches. It's 3rd and 1. The wide receiver was open. Jayden Daniels just didn't throw it. It was one of those things where it's not his fault that he lost the game or LSU lost the game, but at the same time, that's one of those passes where he's got to let it rip. Well, why didn't they run it more? They did. In case you hadn't noticed, LSU's offensive line kind of sucks, and Tennessee leads the nation in run stuffs, and they rotate 12 different defensive linemen, none of whom on that Tennessee defensive line is an underclassman. And when you ran the ball, guess what happened? They beat your ass. You couldn't do shit. Now, could it have been a better play call? Sure, yes. But there's only so much you can do as a coach. Now, the one that I hated, that all of you know, I think this is universally agreed upon with LSU fans and media, the midfield 4th and 10 call before halftime. That right there is horrible, but it also just shows you how desperate Brian Kelly was. In other words, it showed you he doesn't trust his players. Now, a coach can use that situation and say, well, I trust my players to execute in that situation, and we won't let them know, we want to let them know that we have confidence in them and all that stuff. This is the crap that Lane Kiffin tried to tell people the last 2 years at Ole Miss. Why are you going forward on 4th down and 4th and 12? And Lane Kiffin would say, well, we're just, we believe in our players and we want to know that we're changing the game of football. That's such bullshit. Ole Miss's defense was bad. If you'll notice, Ole Miss isn't going forward on 4th down as much this year because they actually have a really good defense. It's coaches speak. It's all bullshit. He doesn't trust his defense to stop Tennessee, and he didn't trust his special teams to not outkick the coverage. The second thing I want to talk about is not deferring to the second half. Look, I've always said that I don't have to agree with a coach's decision. I just have to understand it. I get the reasoning why Brian Kelly does that. it's analytics. I just completely agree with it. Okay, I've never coached a game in my life. Okay, Brian Kelly's coached for 32 years, but your offense is so bad right now, you just got to defer. You got to defer. And I know you did that against Auburn, and they ended up scoring on the first drive anyway, but they have to defer going forward. They have to. The offense gets totally out of rhythm. They don't pick up the pace until the second half. They have to defer going forward. That's what the analytics won't tell you. And hopefully they will do that. And lastly, when it comes to Brian Kelly, and this also brings Matt House into the equation, the choice to not play Harold Perkins most of the game. So here was Brian Kelly's explanation for that.
As you guys know, we moved him to Sam linebacker. Last week was not a position where, and you know the game was a spread game. You got two receivers that are out on the numbers. Harold would have had to be standing out on the numbers playing the game as the Sam. We nickeled out. So we were in a nickel situation. We would have had to change his position back to inside linebacker for that game. We weren't going to do that.
Okay. So basically, Brian Kelly is saying that Harold Perkins cannot play inside linebacker yet because he's a young player and he's not disciplined enough, and facing Tennessee's offense requires a lot of discipline. And he would have gotten beat if he did. Now, what I love is that LSU fans, and this is why the LSU fans are the best in the world, LSU fans, they seem to know more about Harold Perkins and playing Sam linebackers than Matt House does. Y'all should send Brian Kelly a resume. It's very impressive. Look, I don't know if that's a reasonable excuse, but let me tell you something. You are not at practice. I am not at practice. All we can see is that Harold Perkins is an athletic, instinctive freak athlete. Duh, play the fast guy. Wasn't the fast guy playing? Would play the fast guy. But if Brian Kelly gives a reasonable excuse as to why he didn't play the fast athletic guy who looks good in uniform, you say, well, that's stupid. Play him anywhere on the field. Yeah, I don't think play him anywhere on the field, no matter what, is a smarter way to coach a complex SEC defense. But again, you send Brian Kelly your resume. And I will tell you also that Mike Scarborough of TigerBait.com has said even before the season that he spoke with Harold Perkins high school coaches in Texas, and they told him that he will take some time learning the nuances of the college defenses because he's slow to pick those things up, and he did not play linebacker full-time in high school. But also, if Brian Kelly says that out loud, well, he's having some trouble picking some stuff up, then all of you are going to say, oh, he's throwing the players under the bus. Deal with it or not, that's the situation. And lastly, special teams. Okay, I can't defend this anymore, and I'm not going to try to. I can't defend Brian Polian anymore. What is so perplexing to me is that a special teams coach who was objectively that good at Notre Dame is so bad right now. How he became this bad of a special teams coach is blowing my fucking mind. This dude broke records at Notre Dame at special teams the last 5 years. He was top 30 every single year at Notre Dame with their special teams. They were number 3 overall in 2019. They finished in the top 23 out of those 5 years. Coaches don't become bad overnight, but maybe Brian Polian just has. The kicking and returning situation, those are what they are. There's only so much you can do if someone is not good at kicking or not good at being a return specialist. But the lack of discipline in punt and kick coverage is inexcusable. I can't explain it. It just has to be better. I offer you no remedy. I offer you no analysis other than I can't explain it. It has to be better. Now, we will get to the offense. Listen to part 2 of this episode, and I'll give you my thoughts. Thanks for listening to Out of My League. If you like what you heard, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Or follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok in the description link below.